This is all 17 Devil Fruit Awakenings in one piece, along with 2 maybe awakenings, and 1 awakening that I guarantee you didn't know, even if you know this series back to front. Which you should, because from a Western perspective, we read the series back to front. But the world of One Piece is powered by magical fruit. You take a bite, you get a special unique power, but you lose the ability to swim. And for about 10 years, that was the standard. But in extremely rare cases, Devil Fruit users are able to unlock something deeper, because each magical fruit has a hidden ultimate ability known as an awakening. Let's use this flamingo as an example. His name is Doflamingo, and his Devil Fruit ability allows him to conjure and manipulate strings, which allows him to manipulate and conjure others. Seriously, he can use the strings to manipulate people, and he can also use them to conjure copies of himself. No matter what the anime, string is always overpowered. And then you add the awakening on top of that. This was the very first Paramecia awakening we saw in the series, and it completely redefined Devil Fruit combat going forward. It allowed Doflamingo to turn the environment around him into strings, by which I mean during his fight with Luffy, he turned an entire town into string, giving him the complete battlefield advantage. The only real way not to lose instantly in most cases is to have some sort of flying or floating or otherwise just not ground touching ability, which is why Luffy took to the sky, and had Doflamingo not quite arrogantly followed him, the Dressrosa arc may have had a completely different outcome. You get the idea though. Awakenings aren't just a fun bonus feature. Nah, they're game changers. And Luffy's very next major arc antagonist would follow suit. Charlotte Katakuri possesses the Mochi no Mi, which is a devil fruit that looks like a butt plug. You're all thinking it, I just said it. Which gives him the ability to generate, manipulate, and become Mochi himself, because he's a very special boy. But with his awakening, Katakuri, much like Doflamingo, could turn the environment around him into Mochi. Although the Mochi itself is innately less dangerous than Doflamingo's strings. And in this case, Luffy was actually able to hold his own quite well in all of the awakened scenarios. And you might be starting to think there's a pattern emerging, revolving around awakenings being environmental manipulation, but this is where that pattern stops. As our third awakener is Guild Tesoro, the gold guy who ate the gold fruit from One Piece film Gold. So at first glance, his awakening seems very similar to both Doflamingo and Katakuri, because from all of the stunning golden visuals, it looks like Tesoro is effectively turning his environment into gold. But what he's really doing is much less exciting than that. This fruit does not allow Tesoro to create gold, only manipulate existing gold. And the awakening essentially extends the range of Tesoro's influence over said existing gold, with the caveat that Tesoro must have physically touched the gold at some point in the past. This is important because what the awakening does on a fictional scientific level is institute a gold sensory network. So Tesoro can actually feel all of the gold he's touched. And with that advanced awareness, he's able to manipulate it much more precisely, as well as far more en masse by summoning everything and turning him into a big old golden boy. The second of 2 golden giants we've seen in One Piece. But this was the first Paramecia that showed us a unique awakening, which is fascinating because if you just look at Doflamingo and Katakuri, you'd think that awakenings are solved. They all essentially do the same thing with different powers. But no, and in fact, it only gets a lot more complicated, diverse, and disgustingly more powerful from here. Awakening is also a key theme in the sponsor of today's video, web novel, and quite specifically what I've been reading recently, Myriad Parts of the Dragon Emperor. It's your classic setup. Boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl. Girl betrays boy to strip him of his precious blood meridians. Boy is then reborn with a supreme blood meridian and embarks on a quest for revenge. It's a cultivation novel, a genre of Chinese fantasy heavily inspired by Taoism, Chinese alchemy, and best of all, martial arts. And as the novel goes on, our main character Lu Ming cultivates more and more abilities, one of which is the divine level true war dragon technique, which when cultivated to its highest level is said to be unparalleled. All you need to do to read this bad boy is download the web novel app through my link in the description and search for Myriad Parts of the Dragon Emperor and you're there. Plus you can read a whole ton of other great novels and even comics. They also wanted to say a huge thanks to Web Novel for sponsoring this video, which all goes directly towards funding our wonderful channel artists and editors, but also it's a great app with great stories and so incredibly easy to use. So give Web Novel a go, but for now it's back to you, me. Enter Trafalgar Law. He ate the Opi no Mi, and his standard abilities allow him to create a spherical room. And within that room, he's essentially God and can do whatever the crap he wants, whether that be chop you up, give you bird wings, maybe some bird legs, which is a thing that did happen. Whatever he wants to do, he can do it, but the rooms are static, which was the main drawback of the fruit. So if you don't want Law to do all sorts of weird bird stuff to you, then you just get out of the room. But Law's awakening allows him to create a mobile room. but only around a small area which he usually applies to his sword, basically granting him a super sword which can defy the standard laws of existence and phase through seemingly anything even if Haki is being used. That's important because there was a problem on Onigashima where Law's standard attacks wouldn't work on Big Mom because Haki, it was too strong, too big, too... However, that wasn't an issue for the awakening. But what was a bit of an issue was the stamina cost. Law's Devil Fruit is the first awakening that gives us a taste of just how dangerous it can be to access these hidden powers. Hence why Law can only conjure it around such a small area, and it also comes with very limited usage before Law loses the usage of his own body, and if pushed far enough, potentially even his own life. Although it should be noted that Law himself has said that he has yet to master the awakening, which would imply that Devil Fruit awakenings aren't quite as black and white as we thought. They're not like a light switch power-up. And often, awakenings can actually be a very incremental and slow development, meaning that we may not even have seen the full extent of this awakening just yet. Or indeed the next one used by Eustace Kid. He consumed the Jiki Jiki no Mi, which is a pretty wild fruit design. It's one of the few fruits with a unique stem, jagged like lightning, which this fruit has nothing to do with. And it's a sort of fruit that I think you'd really need to be peer pressured into eating after a few drinks with the boys. But it essentially allows Kid to generate magnetic fields that can either attract or repel assorted metal objects, and Kid generally uses it to construct his junkyard mechs and slam them into people. But the awakening of this fruit allows Kid to push this power further into organic matter. A lot of organic matter in the case of its target Big Mom, so much matter, perhaps too much matter. But with this, Kid can assign a polarity value, essentially turning the target into a magnet. Now with Big Mom, this power got brushed to the side because she's more or less immune to brute force, but to an average combatant this would be devastating. They would be buried under literal tons of metal. But the awakening itself is a bit on the weaker side of what we've seen, mostly because it's still heavily reliant on environmental conditions. So if you're not in a space with a nice ton of metal, for it to be effective, Kid would need to assign both the target and the object of impact, which would not be at all cost effective in terms of stamina. But just like Law, Kid has yet to master his awakening, so we might only be seeing a small glimpse of its true power. Eventually it might be able to do something similar to Douglas Bullet, the main antagonist of One Piece Stampede, who ate the Gasha Gasha no Mi, meaning clank clank fruit. It allows him to break down and reassemble objects, and it's implied that Bullet's standard power would only apply to existing objects. Like for example, you get a car, you disassemble it, and you turn it into a motorbike. But with the awakening, Bullet's powers now apply to the environment as well. He can use any natural resource within its range to construct complex machinery. So what he's doing is more or less alchemy with extra steps. The only drawback is that this is one of those fruits that fails to function without very hyper-specific knowledge. You need to have a solid, not just understanding, but imagination for engineering, or this fruit is nigh on useless. But if it was given to, say, Dr. Vegapunk or Frankie, then figures like that would be able to use it to the same or perhaps even greater than Bullet was able to. Although I have to say the reason why Douglas Bullet is an awakened Devil Fruit user in the first place is almost certainly because Guild Tesoro was awakened in the movie before his, and the One Piece movies have a bit of an issue where they need to keep getting bigger and bigger, which is why the last 5 films all more or less deal with quite literally saving the world, which is a scale that even Luffy in the series hasn't even come close to yet. But if Bullet wasn't awakened, then it would have been a step down from Tesoro, and that's not interesting. And this is a trend that even the live shows ended up following. To demonstrate, here is Bad One Gracie, and he is an awakened Devil Fruit user, as well as the primary antagonist of the One Piece premiere show 2017. He was captain of the Big Pirates, and it should be noted the Big is written in all caps, who were aligned with the Blackbeard Pirates, and allegedly fought against Marco and the rest of the Whitebeard Pirates in the Payback War. Bad One Gracie's Devil Fruit is the Ute Ute no Mi, which means shoot fruit. It's a very simple ability that allows him to turn any object into a gun, and once awakened, he was even able to transform an entire island into a big ol' gun. And you might think that sounds similar to Baby 5's Buki Buki no Mi, but the difference is that Baby 5 can only change herself into any weapon, whilst Bad One Gracie can turn objects and objects alone into guns and guns alone. It also has a pretty hilarious weakness that, upon consuming the fruit, it permanently changes the user's arms into miniguns. Although his subordinate Neiro is even weirder because he ate a devil fruit that allows him to control the cholesterol of an opponent's body. His main move is called Cholesterol Ring Attack, and there's genuinely a point in the show where he just makes the entire Straw Hat crew obese, as if it's some sort of extremely niche Rule 34 search. But we've only covered one category of devil fruit so far, being Paramecias. However, the first time the concept of awakening was made known to us was with the Zoan class, specifically through the jailer beasts of Impel Down, who nobody even knew were awakened before it was pointed out by a crocodile. In fact, up until this stage, nobody even knew that the jailer beasts were even human. Given the whole host of other weird creatures in Impel Down, they very much could have been an assortment of just particularly tough stuff. But these were 4 regular people who ate a rhino, cow, zebra, and koala devil fruit. And apart from the rhino, they're all fairly innocuous animals, which says a lot, as after their awakening, they're the strongest, fastest, and most durable beings in Impel Down. This is what a Zoan awakening does. It takes a cuddly koala and transforms it into a vicious giant drop bear that Australians warn tourists about for fun, even though they don't exist. And my favorite is obviously Mino Koala, because g'day mate. But there's also a 5th jailer beast who was employed during the time skip. This is Mino Chihuahua, and it's currently unconfirmed if he's awakened, but it is highly likely. But also, it doesn't matter, because as it turns out, the humanity of the jailer beasts is completely undetectable for a very good reason, which is that all of the jailer beasts are examples of an unsuccessful awakening. Because this process isn't a straight power-up. It comes with extreme risks, and while anyone will tell you that yes, you do need to risk it for the biscuit, these people ended up losing their humanity and only got half a biscuit for their troubles. So let's go ahead and see what a full biscuit looks like. For this, we have Rob Lucci, a man whose devil fruit is one of the more blatant designs. Usually devil fruits are a complete mystery, but if you consume this one and you don't know what you're getting yourself into, then that's on you. Lucci's awakening is very interesting because it almost seems like it works in conjunction with his existing ability Seimei Kikan, which aims to compress his bulky leopard form into a more agile body, which does likely lose some power, but it's irrelevant to a master assassin who aims to kill with every precise strike. So this awakening is like a perfected form of that because it compresses the bulksome leopard without losing power, and it also gives him a pretty sick looking black mane that I'm sure all of the girl leopards are going to be gossiping about by the waterhole in the savannah. Although Lucci's only awakened technique thus far is the Shugun, meaning handgun, but not the one you're thinking of. I mean literal handgun, which is an upgraded version of the standard Rokushiki Shigun, meaning finger gun. That's right, Rob Lucci has taken his skills from fingering to full-on fisting. But Rob Lucci's awakening is particularly impressive because thus far he is the only awakened carnivorous Zoan, and those fruits come with an innate animalistic sense of bloodlust that is very difficult to control even under standard conditions. Shaka even admires Luffy in chapter 1069 by saying, "Quite a rare specimen. Astonishing speed. It's usually the case that awakened Zoan powers absorb and control the user's personality." Shaka there implying that awakened Zoan users aren't rare, but awakened Zoan users who can actually maintain their sense of self are. Which does take us to Tony Chopper, a reindeer who ate a human fruit, and unlike everyone else in this video, Chopper did not achieve his awakening naturally. He accidentally activated it during an overdose of rumble balls, and so Chopper's monster point takes on the physicality and raw power of an awakening, but just like Shaka says in 1069, Chopper completely lost himself in the beast. And you might think that a combination of reindeer and human would be quite docile, but both of those things can be quite aggressive, especially reindeer. Apparently within their harems, they get very jealous about their females, which Chopper would go on to prove on any slobby when he immediately burst into the bathroom room that Nami was fighting in. I call it a bathroom room because it's not a bathroom, but it has all of the components of a bathroom and very few components of a not bathroom. But Chopper's awakening isn't strictly speaking confirmed, and one very valid reason to argue against it is because Monster Point does lack a key aspect of awakened Zoans, which is that whether they're successful or not, they gain access to rapid regeneration. Chopper's Monster Point is actually the exact opposite, leaving him exhausted and unable to move. Or more recently, it turns him into a chibi old man reindeer. However, the answer as to why this happens is probably something reindeer drugs. That, or it's similar to the effect that awakenings have on Kirin lore. They haven't mastered it yet, so using the abilities come with pretty serious consequences. It's still in a weird space though, because Rob Lucci has now shown us what a true awakening should be, and even though Chopper can control Monster Point, it's still not quite a full awakening. If Lucci would be the real deal, and the jailer beasts were halfway there, then Chopper is more like 3/4 of an awakening. And following along we have Kaku, who ate the Ushi Ushi no Mi model giraffe. So Ushi means cow and giraffe means giraffe. You probably think that cows and giraffes are the same animal, but Japanese doesn't care what you think. And Kaku's awakened giraffe form is slimmer, more refined, covered in those trademark dark clouds, and much more importantly, taller, specifically in regards to the neck. And it raises the question of whether or not awakenings are unique to specific users, because Kaku is a trained Rankaku master, which is why he's able to take advantage of that sweet, sweet neck. So I wonder if a different awakened user would put as much value on the neck and perhaps end up with a slightly different form. And the same could be said for any awakening. For example, I doubt that any other Ope Ope user would have created the R room because it's a hyper-specific idea that Law took from his mentor Rocinante. So there's the potential that no two awakenings are the same even if they're the same devil fruit. And speaking of, Kaku was not the first person to use the giraffe fruit. In One Piece episode A, Hort Gasti Ace encountered the previous user of this fruit in the New World, who was a nameless but well-dressed giraffe with a bow tie. Ace proceeded to defeat him in fight battling, and then the giraffe was, quote, finished off by Blackbeard, which may imply that it was Blackbeard who killed the previous user and ultimately allowed the fruit to reincarnate for Kaku. Kaku's also a bit of a weird secondary character, and he might seem a bit out of place in a video like this, which consists of mostly major protagonists and antagonists. However, Kaku trounces all of them because he currently holds the record for shortest time to awaken a devil fruit after consumption. We saw Kaku eat his devil fruit on Enisobi, so it took him a mere 2 years to achieve the full potential of giraffe. But by far the craziest awakening we've seen thus far is Luffy's mythical Zoan fruit, the Hito Hito no Mi Modonika. This awakening is hard to put into words, because what it does is bend reality according to Luffy's whims. I guess it's not that hard to put into words, I just need to put more effort in. But it has no strictly defined limitations, and while most of its abilities so far have to do with some sort of rubber effect, that's more than likely because Luffy's imagination is so rubber focused. But it could feasibly do anything, as demonstrated when Luffy was able to grab lightning from the sky. And the reason why this is particularly outstanding is because the more powerful the base devil fruit, the harder it is to awaken. Because an awakening is all about pushing beyond the standard limitations, which is much easier to do with, say, a basic giraffe than it would be to do if you were given the powers of a mythical god right out of the box. Which may also explain why we have yet to see a confirmed awakened Logia devil fruit, because it's real hard to push the limits of something when there are so few people capable of challenging the basic power alone. But not only do we have an awakened god, but we probably also have at least one awakened devil. Saint J. Garcia Saturn at the time of this recording is not confirmed to be a devil fruit user, however he does display some trademark features of an awakening, mostly the now standard Zoan draping of clouds over the shoulders. And if this is the case, then there is no doubt in my mind that J. Garcia Saturn, and likely the 4 other 5 Elder Stars, and potentially even Emu, currently possess the most powerful devil fruit awakenings in the series. And if you want to know more about fictional fruit or One Piece in general, then please do subscribe for consistent injections of One Piece culture administered directly into your YouTube feed.